In today's video, I'm gonna be breaking down a short film that I recently shot as a cinematographer titled "Same Beef" for my friend and director Jay Sandu. This was quite an experience shooting this film because this was the first time using cine lenses, having an entire crew to work with, and a lot of prep time. One thing that I enjoyed about this was a lot of times when I'm filming, I'm involved in the projects in many ways in terms of writing, in terms of stuff like that. This was the first time whereby I was just filming, and that was my job. And I went through the whole process weekend, which I think might be actually a good thing to go through of how I broke it down. So the first thing I got the script, I broke it down, and then I had a lot of comparable films that he was going for. One of the things that he wanted was to create a film like Creed, with Creed 3, and we broke it down. We were like, okay, this is the equipment that they use. So they used, I believe they had the Sony Venice, they had the Reds. We even found out what type of lenses they were using, and all that was possible to get in terms of replicating, but the budget was not enough, right? So for certain lenses, you were looking at renting out for $500 a day. We had 3 days to shoot this, and we decided to put more of the money in lighting and rather than in equipment. So we ended up using the Sony FX3 and the DZO lenses. So we had to move away a lot from the look that Creed had, but keeping certain things from there, like just in terms of the nature and energy that you got from Creed is what we kept, and we ended up not going anamorphic or stuff like that. I think for anamorphic, one lens that I was looking at was the Orions, and at the rental company they offered me the Angenu, and that would have been great. But we ended up going with a totally different look, so I ended up coming up with my own look, and the film, in my opinion, looks good. It didn't look I would say the way that I envisioned it, because we ended up going for that teal and orange type of look, and sometimes I feel like we overdid it because we had gels on lights, we had a lot of things that we were working with, and the thing that happens is the light then got baked into the skin tones, which made it a challenge in terms of color grading. But I'll show you parts of the film now. So in the opening sequence, we have, the idea was the mom. So this was supposed to be, I don't believe this was supposed to be the opening sequence. I think this was supposed to be at the end, but they changed it in the edit. So in the opening sequence, the mom is sleeping. So in the scene, it says mom is sleeping. She wakes up, she turns on the light. So we had many challenges in that. This is a movie, people are watching it, right? So you cannot be in the dark. So it was, how do we bring that to life? How do we show that in cinematic ways? So one of the ways that we did was, the idea was of combining, that's where the teal and orange worked out for. So it was, we have this blue light replicating the moon, and then that way we are able to expose and see her. So the camera has some information. And then when she wakes up, she turns on the light. So in this instance, she gets the phone call. So I have two light sources here. And I think we were actually shooting at zero in terms of, I wasn't underexposed or overexposed. So when she wakes up, she turns on the light. And the trick here was, so what we ended up doing was, when she turns on the light, you see the practical light, but there's also another person just outside of frame, where we have, I believe we had, so we had an Aperture 300D with an orange Aperture 300D with an orange gel. So the plan was, as soon as she switches on the light, another person turns on the light. So like both lights go on at the same time, creating that contrast that we were looking for, and also allowing more exposure to get in, and that way we don't have noise. And the beauty about the Sony FX3 is we could get away with murder, in filming this. And I think these days I experimented with Cine AI, but I shot everything at 800 ISO. So when she wakes up, then the frame has changed, the entire coloring has changed, which is something that we were going for. Now you can see that blue is taken out because it's coming outside of the house through a window, and then we have this which is within the room, which then takes over the space and just that showcasing, oh, she's woken up and turned on the lights. So for me, me and my team, one thing we were very like proud of was we were able to bring the first page to life essentially. And then for this sequence, like I wasn't really happy with it because we had a lot of challenges just in terms of trying to maintain consistency for what we were going for. But you can see we kept trying to bring in that blue light, but as we'll see how this room is actually lit, it's a whole different vibe. But we were trying to combine it with the mom scene so that you don't really get jarred when you're watching it. And then in this we were using a drone, but with this I think it was the DJI Mini 3 or something like that, so we couldn't really shoot raw, and we just got a baked in image, so it was very difficult in terms of the color grade to make it match with everything else. But I think we did a good job in just making it work. And then, so this was originally the opening scene. In the opening scene, he's on his phone with his girlfriend, unassuming, and it was about how do you introduce the character and make him, how do we introduce the character? How do we light that and set up the ending of the film? Because this is a tragic film, and how do we do that? So one of the main things that the director told me he wanted was this bird's eye view shot. This is something that he was adamant about. So in order to do this, we didn't really have the tools to do it. So what we ended up doing was we took a monopod and then screwed on the camera, and two guys are literally holding it like this, standing on chairs on the ladder. That's how we ended up getting the shot. So you don't really need a lot of it, but there are different ways to have done it. We could have had a better, because I just saw on a show, I think it was The Good Doctor or something like that, where they were on top of a ladder and they put a camera down. So it was like, oh, you could have done that as well. But yeah, so in this again, we're just going with that teal and orange. So we have the blue light coming from outside, which is the moon, and then we have the inside the room. We just have two lamps, and those lamps are the motivation for our yellow light. So we mainly used two lights for the entire show, and we really tried to showcase those lights, to show the people like, oh, this is what we're using. But we always had two lights with us throughout the entire. So with shots like this, we can see one thing I didn't like is we ended up getting double shadows because you're in a wide. I guess I should speak about the lenses we use. So in terms of focal length, I was using the 40 and the 75 because of budgets, right? So in this, I would have preferred to use a 35 or even like a 25 just to get more space because you're in a small room, right? And you need a wider lens to be able to frame it correctly. But in this case, I was on a 40, and then what I had to do was create distance between the camera and the subject. But one of the challenges then that you have is you don't want to show the ceiling because our light is coming from here and we have artificial light. So that was a challenge to have. And in terms of framing, like when he stands up, how do I keep him with enough headroom? And now that I'm even looking at it, I can see the reflection of the light on the thing. So lighting this also setup was quite interesting because the way the script was written, you had a lot of moments where the guys turning on lights, turning off lights. So it was like, how do you replicate what's on the script to real life? How do you do that? And with this setup, what we went for, so you can see the slash of light that's coming through there. So I have a light up the stairs going down, and then when he goes down, he goes to the kitchen. So we didn't really have a lot of lights to light it. So it was like, it's a moving shot, right? So when he goes in the kitchen, you need to have lights in there as well, which made it a little bit difficult. For me, this was one of my favorite setups when we are in the kitchen with the mom and the son, just highlighting the moon. So we really just went full in for the blue. And we knew that once we had it with the mom and once we created that world, no one would really question, like, it's not really blue, but that's the movie world. And we also had to just rely on these practical lights within the room. So because the house is white, so it was like, how do we create an atmosphere? So one of the things that the director wanted, he wanted to go for that yellow tone. And it was how do we get him to there, but also keeping in mind that the house has a lot of wide platforms, right? So which bounce light and make it difficult. So because we had all that space and stuff to deal with, I think we did a pretty good job. So right now outside the house we have the Aperture 300D on with a blue gel, and then inside I don't think I had I think I had one light inside, and just to create, to give me exposure, and the rest of it was just relying on these practicals and gelling up some of the practicals to get the mom. And then here it's again another Aperture 300D with probably, I'm not sure. I think we used a Fresnel to run this light in, and then yeah, that was pretty much it. And then when he opens the door, I do believe I had an Aperture 300D waiting for him outside. Yeah, with another blue gel. So we really relied heavily on gels for these shots, which was phenomenal. For the car, so one thing that we had going for us was on this day it was Halloween, so this was 31 October. And for the car, the challenges that we had was there's a big street pole outside this house, so it was gonna create the yellow that we didn't want, and we couldn't really gel it up as much. So what we were trying to do was to incorporate it. But as you can see, I have the blue moon, but the challenge with that is because it's already dark and you don't have a very big light. I think here is where you would need those 18Ks to be able to just highlight what we were doing, but we didn't have that. It then became about where is this blue light coming from. But I think no one really questions it because now you can see, you're like, oh, there's a blue source coming from somewhere, right? So it's like, how do we carry that? And I think we did a pretty good job. So at this essence, it stops feeling like it's the moon, but it just feels like there's a blue light outside, which can be a street light, which can be something else. This is one thing that the gaffer did. I didn't. The more that I'm doing this, I don't really like it, like having a light inside the car that's just hot on the talent. But also, like, I think after watching Dune and you see how they use hot light, you can appreciate it. So when they go to the party, we had some challenges with these shots because you want to separate the inside from the outside. So we've already stated that our moon is blue, so we have to maintain it. But then the inside, we want to make it warmer because they're going inside a house, which is warm. So it was about how do you create that contrast and how do you showcase that without losing, you know, and making things jarring. So right now we had a light outside gelled blue, and then we had the light inside gelled orange. So the tricky part was when she opens, what light is on the girl? Is it the light coming from outside or is it the light coming from inside? And we ended up going with the light coming from outside, and then I have a negative literally somewhere here, which is not letting this yellow hit her face, because we are looking from the outside in. And then when we do the reverse, they're also affected by the light from outside. But you can see on her hand that she's being hit by that yellow light. So once we are inside, one of the things that I was trying to do with the character was, because we're in one room and so I was lighting two rooms at the same time. So the idea is once we move in there, you want to create the atmosphere. So the drama was like these guys are having dialogue about a conversation of things that are happening in the next room. So it's like, how do I capture that? And I think that as a cinematographer, one of the things that you're tasked with the director is helping him helping a director bring the vision to life, right? Bringing the script to life, helping the writer bring that script to life. And one of the things that we were going for was in the script, there's people are talking about things that are happening in the next room. So how do I communicate to the audience that this is what's happening, right? So one thing that we did was we lit the other room, and then the way I framed it was, okay, you are here and we can still see what's happening out there whilst we're focused on what's happening in here. So that was always in terms of how I would approach it. And also because it's a party, I was grateful to have some background helping us, just to create that atmosphere of like, yeah, we're in this environment with a lot of people. So in most cases, because I'm using a 75 and a 40, it's very difficult to see where I switch the lens which for me is perfect, because it then feels as if it's one lens. But in this instance, I believe this was the 75. And the reason I was going for that was with the 40, it allowed me to create the essence of you as the audience member. You are there. And then with the 75, what I'm able to do is compress space and then make it feel as if the room is, we have more people. It's a bigger space than it actually is. So as you can see, if you were to count the amount of people that are in this room, it's not really a lot, but the idea is we were trying to sell that there's a lot of people at this party. So that's what the 75 helped me with. In the end, at the end, so this in the final sense of it was the challenge was when someone is laying on the ground, right? And you've seen how we lead the top when they're standing. It's how do you light the ground? How do I create any form of contrast? And I really struggled with it. And also because of the surface area, it's white, right? So light bounces off of it. So you couldn't really put lights hitting them. So we ended up just messing up the shot. Like in post, you're like, man, how can we fix this through coloring otherwise? But we did our best, we did our best. So this shot was supposed to symbolize the opening shot where we open with him laying on the bed with his girlfriend. To it at the end is again on a phone call, and we have that bird's eye view shot. But in the edit, they ended up doing a switcheroo with his mom, which is also fine. A lot of these things are made in the edit. And then in this instance, there's a pullback that I really enjoy doing. And yeah, so that was same beef. The majority, I think I had 3 or 4 lights that I could use in this shot, in this film. It takes a team, it takes a lot. One of the things that I love doing is using negative and diffusion. That's my favorite thing to do, especially if I have access to it, just being able to shape light. And that's something that we did a lot in this film. In terms of framing, I think I did a good job. No one would tell me, but I think we did a lot of amazing work for this film to make it work. One thing that I really enjoyed was I didn't have to worry about actors' performance. My focus was always on framing and making sure we have perfect lighting to capture each actor's performance, and making them all look good. So I think we fundamentally were able to do that. And yeah, so you don't need much. You need, I think we used 3 Aperture 300Ds, and we had some, I don't know if we had MCs for this one, but I think we had tiny lights as well. And then I utilized, because one practicals a lot. Like there's a lot of practicals in this that we utilized in production design as well. And then just having the right team, But one main thing that I would say to avoid lights that you cannot control, because you always want to control the situation that you're working in. With that said, let me know if you have any questions in the comment section, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.